Hi, I'm Gavin from KindHuman, and I'd like to welcome you to the KindHuman Cycling Show. Today, our guest is Adam Myerson. Many of you out there know Adam as a longtime KindHuman rider. He was actually our first professional rider we ever sponsored, and at KindHuman, we definitely owe a lot of our who we are and our visibility to Adam and his commitment to riding our bikes over the years. Tonight we're going to be talking about coaching and training, and the idea is that we're going to have a bit of a different spin on it, where we can focus more on the enthusiastic rider, most of you guys and girls out there, as opposed to what typically happens when talking about coaching and people who are racing. So with that, Adam, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks for the intro.
Yeah, thank you for being here. So maybe you can start by giving a bit of background about your most of our audience knows you as a racer, but maybe give us a bit of background as to you as a coach and CycleSmart as a business.
Sure. Well, in the 90s when I was in my 20s and really trying to have a go at pro bike racing, I just really became a student of the sport. I don't think I was the most naturally talented athlete out there, and I realized if I was going to try to succeed in the sport and do it clean, I was going to have to pay attention to everything. And I took some exercise science classes in college and really just learned everything I could and tried to take the best approach I could. And when I didn't succeed at my first attempt at turning pro, I was 27 when I finally finished college and my student loans were coming due and decided it was time to stop. I started just volunteer coaching some junior riders as a way to make myself feel better, you could say, about having spent 10 years pursuing something that I felt like I hadn't succeeded at. And I wanted to pass that knowledge I had acquired on and maybe help save someone, like help someone get over move further in the sport past where I had made it. And once I started doing that sort of volunteer work and people started finding out that I was coaching, the phone started ringing. I had no plans to be a professional cycling coach, or certainly had no plans to own a coaching company with 10 coaches on staff. But I sort of got picked for the job, you could say. And that was in 1999 that I was able to dedicate myself to it full time and make it my job. And then very quickly, within a year, had to start bringing other coaches on board to handle the demand. And of course, then I got a second chance to race full time and turned pro in 2003. So that whole time I was a pro, the 13 years from 2003 to 2015, I was also coaching full time and running a business, full of other coaches.
Fantastic. And so one things that people often ask me is when I refer CycleSmart and I talk about you guys and tell people they should hire you, is what's the difference between hiring CycleSmart, hiring a coach, versus a lot of the kind of free training programs that are out there today?
I think the difference is there are lots of people who can build training plans. And so even there, I would say that there's a difference where purchasing a plan off the internet means there's a plan that's a bell curve that many people might fit into, but that plan doesn't really know anything about you. You can punch in how many hours a week you have available for training and what your fitness level is, but none of that is a substitute for a conversation with a real person who understands what you're telling them and can relate to it and can interpret that into what training will look like in practice. There are, new devices out there that are designed to measure your stress off the bike, your all-day stress. But again, there's no substitute there for a conversation. So even people who come to us for a training plan, who don't necessarily want coaching, we still build those plans from scratch based on an interview process. There's still a human being building that plan just for you. you can't buy a canned plan from us. That's just not a thing that we offer. But then I think secondarily, coaching is a relationship. It's an ongoing process. Following a plan is one thing, but what if you can't follow the plan as it was written for you? What if someone gets sick? What if your work situation changes? What if a race gets canceled? Or what if it rains for a week? There are just all these variables that come into play, that having a coach is there. That coach is there to help you respond to those things that you can't plan for. How to adjust the plan, how to increase your workload or decrease the workload, or change the flavor of your workload based on the way you're responding to it, or what your life actually looks like. And I think that's what CycloSmart and all the CycloSmart coaches do best. I think empathy is our best quality as a company, as a team of individual coaches. And there's no empathy in a canned training plan.
Yeah. So what is it like? What does it look like when somebody comes to you for the first time and they want to start working with you? Can you walk us through the process from that first time they reach out up until actually they're full into the program?
Yeah, usually an inquiry will start with an email. Someone just checking in, hey, I'm interested, and they may or may not be interested in a particular coach, or they may not really know what they want quite yet, but they want to discuss what the options are. And so, there'll be a little bit of an exchange of information via email, but usually the first thing we'll try and do is schedule a phone call and get on that phone call and just get to know each other better. And that's my primary job at CycloSmart, is the person who interviews all of the new client inquiries. And then my goal is to match them with a coach within the company that shares their interests, maybe is a compatible personality. It's really important the coach and the athlete get along well, that they like to talk to each other. That makes a big difference in an athlete's success. If they're geographically close, that's helpful. It's nice if you can see your coach in person, but it's not mandatory. So much of what we do is through the internet, and that doesn't necessarily mean it's impersonal. It just means phone calls, video chats, data files, emails. So lots of communication, just not always in person. And then we want to figure out how much attention do they need. When we build a plan for them, do they want to revisit what they've done once a month, once a week, every day? Do they want to be able to text you in the middle of the night? So how much attention they want and how much attention they can budget for are the things that we want to try to figure out. And that can vary. Like, I think it's easy for a new athlete or someone who's coming to coaching for the first time think that certain things are reserved for professional athletes only. And it's just not true. Like, we're trying to answer the same questions for the people who have a family and a 40 plus or 60-hour a week job, who have 6 hours a week to train with. You're still struggling with all the same things. How much energy do I have? How much time do I have? How do I best spend the time that I have? How much work can I handle? Things like that. So the questions are the same no matter what the ability level of the athlete is. And we don't treat our pros any different than we treat our novice riders or our category 5 riders.
So what is the range of costs that one can expect working with professional coaches?
The range can vary. There are a lot of hobbyist coaches or new coaches who are charging just enough to make it so that you're paying for something. Let's say $50 a month. I think you get what you pay for in that case, of course. For us, our lowest price plan, and we're talking in US dollars, is $150 a month. And that's a monthly check-in. So we'll build a plan for 4 weeks, discuss what the plan is and what to do, make sure that you have workouts for every day for that month. We're there to answer questions maybe once a week along the way if there are problems, but generally the big check-in is a phone call and a review of the work done on a monthly basis. And that's $150 a month. You can do that same process on a weekly basis. That's $300 a month. If you want daily access, it's essentially unlimited. If you want to check in after every workout to make sure you know that you're set to go before the next workout, that's $600 a month. And then we have an unlimited or category level. That's $900 a month. That's basically full access, and only our senior coaches have access to that rate. Most of our athletes fall between the weekly and monthly, level 2, level 3. So that $150 to $300 a month range. Again, US dollars.
Awesome. And so one of the things that we often get asked is what's the difference when somebody's just kind of riding on their own, either whether it's in their trainer or they're outside, who's never hired a coach, versus somebody who's going to follow a training plan and work with you guys?
What's the difference? I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
So what are they going to, like, what's the difference in how they're going to experience their riding and their training when you're following a program versus just kind of going as hard as you can?
Winging it. Yeah. Well, so it depends on why you're riding, but whether you're racing or not, everybody enjoys improving and getting stronger. For me, success gets measured in improvement, basically only. As long as you're getting better, it's hard to predict how good you're going to get, how old you are, how talented you are, how many hours you have to work with. Like, all those things are variables, and I don't like to make predictions about someone's success. What I care about is, can we help you get better? And we think that you'll have a better time, you'll have more fun the fitter you are. So this is why if you're doing gravel events because you enjoy them and they're just competitive enough for you, you're not interested in traditional road racing, that maybe feels like cutthroat and not very fun, whereas gravel racing has this camaraderie, and you sort of there's competitiveness wherever you want to find it. You can go hard at the back with your friends, or you can ride at the front with all the fastest riders if you really want to push yourself. It's like wherever you want to find that level of competitiveness, it's there for you. I think that's a big part of the appeal. Even events like that are more enjoyable if you've done some training and show up with some fitness. The faster you can go for the same amount of effort, the better a time that you'll have. So with that time that you have available, as opposed to just winging it, often what people do is they ride hard on days that they should rest. They don't do the right kind of hard training on the days that they ride hard. So maybe they improve to a point, but ego often gets in the way of needing to rest at certain times, and staleness can set in, and then riding stops being fun, because if you start having bad sensations every time you go ride, and riding is your medicine, riding is your mental health outlet, and now riding doesn't feel good because you probably should have rested a little. There's just a limit to how much improvement you can make. And really, I think you limit your enjoyment. If you have a coach and you have a plan, and that coach is paying attention to your response to the training dose, the training can still be fun. And just having someone looking over your shoulder, keeping your ego in check, helping you make good decisions, means you'll improve faster. You'll reach a higher level of fitness. You won't be wasting any time. You'll be maximizing the limited time you have available for training. And that just turns into more fun on the weekend.
So you mentioned something about doing the right kind of hard when you go hard. Can you elaborate on that?
Sure. What's the briefest way I can elaborate on that? I think riders who haven't raced before and who haven't been coached before tend to ride at this uncomfortable but not painful pace all the time. They're always riding sort of as hard as they can for an hour. It's not time trial pace. It's like they want to feel something, they want to move. And that's worthwhile. Like, that will make you stronger. It'll make you healthier. It's great for health and well-being. If you're going to enter events, you almost never ride at that pace in an event. maybe in gravel more so, you do a little more what we would call tempo riding, where it's kind of a grind all day. But anytime you've got a hill to climb or turns to sprint out of, the thing that's really enjoyable about bike racing is that it's dynamic. If you're a runner, you pick an event distance and you go as hard as you can for whatever that distance is. The pace doesn't change. And in bike racing, the pace changes constantly because of the pack. You're drafting, you're accelerating for corners, like I said, you're climbing. So your training has to reflect that. It has to reflect how dynamic cycling is. And so there needs to be 15-second sprint workouts and 1 minute anaerobic work capacity intervals and 5-minute VO2 max intervals and 20-minute threshold intervals and 30-minute tempo intervals. And all those things happen over the course of a single ride, and certainly over the course of a single race. And so your training should consist of all those efforts. And left to their own devices, most people would never do those efforts. But then when they find themselves in a competitive situation, they might be super fit, but they might get dropped at the first short, steep climb because they haven't trained the effort needed to just sprint over that climb. And then they get dropped. They're not out of energy. They're still fit. They can still ride hard, but they're not in the pack anymore. Yeah. So that's probably the biggest difference you'll do when you do specific workouts.
Yeah, and actually, it's funny you talk about that. I remember I was up at Northampton at one of your cross races, and I was talking to you about how every time I run up a hill, I just was gassed, and I had to like recover while everybody rode away. And so I'm like, what do I do about this? You're like, go run up hills.
It sounded Yoda-esque in its simplicity, right? Like,
yeah,
you had the answer already. Well, do the thing that you're bad at. Go home and do the thing that you're bad at more often. Sometimes it can feel that my job can feel that simple, because it's very clear to me and the answers are very plain. But I have 35 years of bike racing experience at this point, and 20 years of coaching. So of course it seems easy to me, but cycling is a sport of specificity in terms of the training the training needs to match what happens in events. But if you're inexperienced in terms of events, how would you know what you need to reproduce in your training to prepare for those events? And that's something a coach can help you with.
Yeah. So a few years ago, I started working with CycleSmart, and my main reason for coming to you guys was a few of the friends who I wanted to ride with were starting to train and were getting faster than me, and I was struggling to keep up. And so I hired you with my only goal was I just wanted to keep up with two of my good buddies. And what I remember most about when I started was you guys didn't want me using my power meter or anything. It was all about perceived effort and understanding my body. Can you talk about why that's so important?
Yeah. So if you have a power meter, of course, we love it if everybody has power meters. It makes our job so much easier. And the most important part of the power meter is tracking the data as much as it is prescribing the workouts. So the most important gauge of effort is perceived exertion. You have a computer, a cycling computer head unit between your ears, and that is the important one. So if something feels hard, it's hard, and you have to pay attention to that. And the mistake that riders often make with their power meter is every workout is an opportunity for them to battle demons, ease some insecurity, or feed their ego in a way that gets them in trouble, emotionally and physically. And so the first thing we want to do when someone starts working with us, even if they have a power meter, is we want them to learn the workouts, but we want them to learn how the workouts feel. And we want them to observe how much power they make if they ride at a certain feeling, if they ride at a certain sensation. So if I can describe to you what threshold should feel like, and you can go out and do that for 20 minutes, then when you're done, we can look and say, how much power did you make when you rode at this feeling that I described to you and that you were able to reproduce in training? And then we have a benchmark. And we can say, okay, well, at that feeling you made, at X feeling you made Y watts. So let's keep training. And if the plan works, down the road at X feeling, you're going to make Y plus Z watts, right? The power is going to go up at the same perceived exertion. The mistake that people make when they get a power meter often is they think they can just try harder. They think they can make the power go up by simply pushing themselves harder. And invariably they overpace their workouts and overtrain and regress at some point. They fail. So that's the trap we're trying to keep people from falling into when they get a power meter, especially if they're uncoached and have a power meter. It's a very dangerous thing.
Yeah. So then what does a week schedule look like for somebody who's training with a coach?
It can vary a lot based on time available, the athlete's ability level, strengths and weaknesses of the athlete, and the goals. What events are they training for? I think if you're trying to prepare for traditional road racing criteriums or maybe cyclocross, you might have a workout that a work week, a cycling work week that also would, I shouldn't interrupt myself, it'll change at certain times of the year. What you do on certain days in the spring is different than what you're going to do on certain days during the summer, and whether or not you're racing a lot or occasionally, or not at all. So I think as one example, a very typical early season structure might be a sprint workout on Tuesday where you're focused on anywhere from 3 to 20, 8 to 15 second maximal efforts, where you're getting out of the saddle and sprinting as hard as you can for 10 seconds. The second day might be threshold work. And by threshold work, I mean the pace that you could sustain if you went hard for an entire hour, in blocks of anywhere from 12 to 20 minutes. So building up to being able to do that effort for 12 to 20 minutes, and then being able to repeat it twice or 3 times or 4 times is what training is about. So you might not start at 60 minutes worth of work. You might only do 12 in your first workout until you can get stronger. The third day might be a tempo focused or endurance oriented ride where every day the rides might be getting a little bit longer if you have time available, as the intensity is getting a little less. So sprints on that first day, and then a little lower intensity, not an easier workout, but a lower intensity workout would be the threshold work. And then the third day might be tempo work, where you ride at that tempo that I described earlier of like pressure without pain, that uncomfortable pressure that's not painful that you can do, maybe for the entire ride. You might do a workout like that with 20 or 30 minute blocks and build up to 60 or 90 or 180 minutes worth of work. I mean, you have to be a professional to do 3 hours worth of that work, but that's the range of what people are doing. So and then a recovery day, to start that off, and a recovery day to finish it. But you might do some version of that twice over the course of a 7 or 8 day period.
Cool. So
in the springtime.
Yeah. So one of the words you just used was recovery. And I find there are a lot of people who misunderstand what a recovery ride truly is. When we're doing recovery rides, why do we do them, and what is it?
Yeah, sure. So there are rest days and then there are recovery days. And those aren't the same thing, even though they may look identical. So it would be good to differentiate between those two things too. I think the reason why new or uncoached riders don't take recovery days is because their hard days are never so hard that they are really blasted the next day, where they would feel, where it would be obvious to them that they need to ride easy because they've gone so hard the day before. So when you work on a structured plan, your days start having very different flavor from each other. And you should go hard enough on those hard days that you really do need to take an easy day. And so the recovery day is sometimes, it's actually one of the hardest days of the week for new riders, because they just want to pedal as hard as they can every time they go out. Getting people to take easy days so that their body can recuperate from the work that they've done, give them time to adapt, recover, heal, improve, means you can then go out and do the work at a higher power with increased fitness. If you don't do the recovery, you don't get the improvement. Improvement comes in the recovery. It comes in the rest. It doesn't come in the training. So you stress the system, you let it heal, it adapts, and then you stress it again at a higher level. Like, that's just the basic core of systematic training for any sport. So it's important to, if you can, to ride on recovery days too. And we call them active recovery days, because you will be you'll be recovered more quickly if you can have activity, muscle contractions, blood flow, all those things help you heal, let's say, more quickly. Without being too specific about the science, I'll speak a little anecdotally, but you will essentially heal more quickly with light, active recovery activity than you would if you took the day completely off, let's say. There are times to take the day completely off. Real life means you might have to take the day completely off to get caught up on everything that you've been putting off to do the training. But for best recovery, you want that active recovery. A rest day might look the same. You might do a 30 to 60 ride at a very, very easy pace, the easiest pace you can do, let's say. But you might be done recovering, but still need to ride easy because you have an event coming up and you're too close to that event to do a hard workout. And so that would be resting in advance of something, as opposed to recovering from what you did previously. So you're doing two different things. It still might be a 60-minute easy spin to the coffee shop and back, but there are two different things happening, both physiologically and with the goal that you have, down the road.
So then let's see if I understand this correctly. The recovery day is I'm doing an easy ride where I'm recovering from what I did the day before, whereas a rest day, I'm resting for the day that's coming up ahead of me.
That's right.
Okay,
that's right.
Cool. Yeah. So after listening to you, I'm sure there are going to be people out there who are interested in working with CycleSmart. How do people get a hold of you?
They can go to the website. It's probably the best place to start. It's cycle-smart.com, cycle with a hyphen, smart.com. Like I mentioned, there's 10 coaches there, all, coaching in that same system. And we work as a team of coaches with weekly phone calls and collaborating on our athletes. So you get the knowledge of the group and the experience of the group and the expertise of the group, whichever coach in the group that you choose. So I think that's something also that sets us apart, that we do work as a collective that shares knowledge and experience among us. So all the levels of what we offer are there, and you can reach out either to me directly, adam@cyclesmart.com, or generally at the coaching@cyclesmart.com email address, and I'm most likely to answer that myself if you do.
Awesome, thank you. And if anybody else out there wants an introduction through me, and you have my contact info, please feel free. I'm always happy to introduce people to CycleSmart and to Adam. As I said earlier, I've worked with them and they're fantastic. I know a lot of their coaches. the personalities that Adam hires for are, they're all top-notch people, and people who you're going to enjoy kind of hanging out with and spending time with and building that relationship with. So with that, Adam, I would really like to thank you for being on the show tonight with us. I learned a lot. It's always fun talking to you, and I hope the audience out there feels the same. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk about it.